Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Tomas Ramirez from Positive Gains Training, and today we're back with another episode of Impact Beyond the Weights. Just want to say thank you guys, as always, for watching and tuning in. The month of March, we've been really highlighting nutrition, and I just want to say that, sometimes you need to take a break. I know this is random, but sometimes you need to know your limits. You need to take a break. So I was supposed to film this video last week, but I was just tired. It was my birthday week, just a lot going on. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put any more pressure on myself. And I just took the week off, not from work, but just, I didn't film like I wanted to. And I had to learn to be perfectly okay with that. Like, I like to be routine. I like to have consistency, especially with my posts. But sometimes you just got to take a break, and it's okay. So we're back. We're filming now. Happy 313 day to all my Detroit people, all my Michigan people. That's why I'm wearing my Tigers gear today. So I'm excited for the baseball season. Let me know if you love baseball. It's going to be very different without Miggy there in the lineup this year. But hey, time goes on, and hopefully we'll be a pretty good team this year. So, like I said, we've been highlighting nutrition, and today I'm really, really excited to bring you guys this new information. Last week, we were just going over the basics and fundamentals. I'll link all that into the description box of this video or on the post when I post this on Facebook. Okay, so you can go back and watch that. The breakdown of proteins, the breakdown about how much protein you should get in a day, how to make your own plate. Okay, so just very basic nutrition stuff is what we did. It wasn't last week, it was actually 2 weeks ago, because again, I didn't film this when I wanted to. But so go back and check out that video. And then today we're going to be talking about how to fight cravings. So definitely looking forward to this. I really appreciate my client bringing this question out, because it's really led me down a rabbit hole of just learning a whole bunch of other information pertaining to your gut health. So that's going to be something we'll be talking about sooner rather than later. So with all that being said, I just want to say again, thank you guys. This is Tomas Ramirez from Positive Gains Training. This is Impact Beyond the Weights. And with no further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me reset my PowerPoint, because I was going over it just before I start filming. All right. So as always, guys, we keep it very professional. I like to have fun, but I like to also be professional as well. So we have a PowerPoint here. And like I said, today we are going to be talking about how to fight food cravings. And of course, I'm not just going to bring them to attention, because most of us already know, but I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to combat those as well as we get in depth with that. All right. So the question again was brought to me by my client, Connie. She said, how to fight cravings. So in the studio, I like to put up a question of the day. Lately, I've just been doing questions of the week just to give feedback. And this was one of her questions pertaining to the struggles, was how to fight cravings. Okay, or she wanted to know more about this. If she can learn anything more about nutrition, it'd be this: how to fight cravings. And I think most of us would relate to that. So as always, let me change this. So our quote to begin this series was, when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need. I know you can't see the bottom part because I'm in the way. But when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. So it doesn't matter how much medicine you're taking if your diet is not in place. Again, supplements should be supplementing a good diet. People just want to take a magic pill to get these magic results, and it doesn't happen like that. Okay, so stop buying those TV scams. Stop buying people who say they'll make you lose 20 pounds in 90 days and put on 10 pounds of muscle. It just is not going to happen like that. Okay, it's going to take work. It's going to take longevity. Okay, so when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. But when diet is correct, medicine is of no need. You're not going to need it, and that's what we want to be. This is the goal. This is why I do Impact, is because I want to educate people to be the best and not rely on supplements, not rely on medication, and to age gracefully by the grace of God, of course. All right, so some additional quotes I have in here. This one's a funny one. It's meant to be funny. It says, vegetables are a must on a diet. I suggest carrot cake, zucchini bread, and pumpkin pie. This comes from Jim Davis. I like that quote. I thought it was funny, but also another thing I like to throw in there is that you can make these recipes healthier. You don't have to throw in a ton of sugar into your carrot cake. You don't have to throw in a ton of sugar into your zucchini bread. You don't have to throw in a ton of sugar into pumpkin pie. There's a lot of substitutes, and now am I saying all substitutes are great? No, but I mean, when it comes to calorie wise, sure. And of course, no one's saying to not enjoy sweets ever in our life. We just tend to put in bad oils, or we tend to put in a whole bunch of sugar or just fake food, and we can make these things healthy. Once upon a time, people had to make these foods in a healthier way because these fake products didn't exist. Let's go back to that. And then the second quote I have is, let's be clear. It's not enough just to limit ads for foods that aren't healthy. It's also going to be critical to increase marketing for foods that are healthy. And that comes from Michelle Obama. I like that because I feel like part of, again, we'll talk about this, part of the cravings is the enticement. It's part of the triggers. It's part of what's being accessible to us. When you watch TV, you get like a fast food or a dine out commercial, every single commercial break, if you still have commercials. Um, there's, some type of fast food being promoted, or there's some type of restaurant being promoted. So it's like these things are always accessible to us, and I can go to a Taco Bell that's less than a mile away from my house. I can go to a McDonald's less than a mile from my house. But where can I go to find real healthy foods? Again, it's just that's what's accessible to us, and that's unfortunate. And I feel like the only way to combat that is if, like Michelle said, we advertise for healthy foods and we make healthy foods accessible, and of course, affordable to our budgets as well. But that's a whole nother topic. But I like that quote a lot, so I put it in there too. So again, a disclaimer. I am a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach through various programs. Again, if you want to check my credentials, go back to the first video of the series. I am not a registered dietitian, meaning I did not go to college and get a 4-year degree in nutrition. What I love to, I'm actually thinking about it because I really love nutrition. I love teaching. So something I am considering. All right, so let's get into this. So as always, guys, we always want to use words in context and get a proper understanding. So I hope you guys just don't learn fitness from me, but you'll also learn vocabulary from me. So the definition of a craving, there's 2 of them. It's a powerful desire for something. So I like that word powerful because it's very, very strong. It's like a strong urge, like you just can't shake it, like it's hard. It's a powerful desire for something. And then the second one is strong feelings, feeling of desire or appetite. I really like the appetite part because what you continue to keep feeding is what you're going to continue to keep craving. And that doesn't just mean physically, that means in everything. Everything in your life, whatever you are feeding is what you are going to continue to keep craving, right? So if you are eating bad foods, guess what? You are going to crave bad foods. I think it's crazy that when we eat real food, people consider that diet food. Like, that's dieting food? Like, that's what we were made to eat. Dieting food, to me, in my personal opinion, should be fast food. It should be you're going out to your restaurants. That's dieting food because that's not food that we are necessarily, quote unquote, meant to eat and just have easy access to. That just isn't made in nature. You know what I'm saying? So a strong appetite. So whatever you are continuing to feeding, maybe that's in your spirit, maybe that's in your soul, whatever you're continuing to keep feeding, negativity, images, whatever, that's what you're going to crave. That's what you're going to build the appetite for. That's what you're going to want. Okay, so I really like that second definition. Okay, so we're going to identify cravings. So at the top here, we're going to start with the types. I think everybody knows it's usually sweet or salty. And then sometimes in other cases, it's specific foods. Again, that appetite. What do you have the appetite for? Right? So sweet, salty, and specific foods. We're also going to talk about timing. So again, this is where you have to identify. Is it midday that you start to get these cravings? Is it because you're bored that you start to get these cravings? Again, that's a lot of consideration too. And then, of course, for my ladies, is it that time of the month? We'll talk a whole bunch about that as well. And then habits. So identifying your habits. Are you a stress eater? Like, are you stressed and that's why you have these cravings? Is it part of your routine or lifestyle, like how you grew up and what you do now? Because what you develop as a kid really impacts you as an adult. Okay, what you learn. So that's why, again, impact beyond the weights. I'm trying to teach parents like, hey, what you are doing now is going to pour down into your kids. They're going to do the same exact thing. If you don't like where you're at, you're teaching them to be exactly the same way. They're not going to know any better, so they're going to teach their kids to be the same exact way. So generation after generation after generation is going to continue in this cycle, and we want to break that. Okay, and then the environment. So pertaining to people and food accessibility, as I kind of already mentioned earlier. So again, we're talking about types, we're talking about timing, we're talking about habits. Those are our 3 points today. So if you did not see week 1 of the nutrition kickoff video, I had these pictures there, and I really like this because mindset is everything. Your perspective and your attitude is everything when it comes to anything that you do. So again, over here on the left-hand side, we have the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. So again, the fixed mindset typically, as I label it, as the all or nothing people. Like, it's either I'm in it or I'm not, or I'm either really good at it or I'm not. I'm never going to be any better at it. It's just very fixed. It's very rigid. There is no flexibility in there. Whereas the growth mindset is, again, the one at the top, failure is an opportunity to grow. So it's always seeing things as, yeah, I'm not perfect at something right now, but the more that I practice it, again, going back to the first video, so go watch that. The more that I practice it, the better I'll become. So it's having that hope and that expectation that over time I'll become better versus the all or nothing mindset is like, well, I can't do this now, so I'm never going to be able to do it later, right? Then, of course, on the right-hand side, we have mindset, and then talking about how your attitude is going to affect your behavior and how your behavior affects what you do and your actions. And your actions are either going to determine your results or not. And if you don't get any results, you're not going to perform well, right? Because you're like, there's no point to it. So again, there's a lot that goes into it. Mindset is highly overlooked. So go back and watch the first videos. I talked more about that. Okay. So craving types, again, back to the previous slide, we was talking about sweet, salty, and sometimes specific foods. So why do we have these cravings in the first place, typically? Okay, so from a physiological standpoint, so internally, stress, so this could be the cortisol and insulin relationship. So typically when someone's really, really stressed, they have a lot of cortisol. So I'm sure a lot of us have seen videos now on social media talking about, having too much cortisol is bad. Actually, cortisol is for our benefit. Have you ever been in a bad situation, and you remembered what happened, so now you know not to do that again? Well, the reason why you remember that is because cortisol. Okay, so yes, it is our fight or flight mechanism. I'm sure most of us have heard of that too. It's a fight or flight mechanism. And it's very important to our survival, right? Because it's good to have a healthy fear and a healthy remembrance of things that has happened so we don't do it again. Okay, but the problem is that we're so stressed, that we're so consumed with so many different things, so much information, work, having a family, that we're always in a high fight or flight mode. We're always living in that constantly. And that's the problem. So it's not that cortisol is bad, it's just that we don't ever turn it off. Okay, so that's where the insulin relationship comes in, because as cortisol increases, okay, insulin decreases. So in order to bring your cortisol down, your body's like, hey, we need to increase this insulin. Usually that's from sugary foods, carbohydrates. So that's why my people who are super stressed, they want to have that. I want to have that comfort food is what we call it, right? And I just learned this because, again, thanks to this question, I've been learning more about gut health, and I learned that 90% of serotonin, so the chemical that fights like depression, that fights off, having a bad day, that makes you feel good, makes you feel better, 90% of that hormone. There we go, we're back. Has anybody else's phone been getting blown up from just random numbers lately? Sorry. Let me say that again. 90% of your serotonin, so the feel-good hormone, the thing that combats depression and anxiety, 90% of that is produced in your gut. So guess what? When you eat those foods, that's typically why you want to eat those foods, is because you're stressed and you're trying to combat that. Again, from a cortisol insulin relationship level and just from a mood level. Okay, so that's why it's very important to track these things. Also, low vitamins and minerals. Most of us don't eat enough vegetables. I would say we probably eat more fruits than vegetables. If you're honest with yourself, let me know in the comments. Do you eat more fruits than vegetables? Typically, that's the standard American diet. Very low vegetables, maybe one a day, right? Or we're dehydrated. So we're lacking electrolytes. That's for more of my salty people. We're dehydrated. So just because you drink a lot of water doesn't necessarily mean you're getting all the electrolytes, your potassium, your magnesium, your calcium, your sodium, all those things. It doesn't mean just because you drink a ton of water, it means you're hydrated. That's not necessarily always the case. Okay, so I found this nice, interesting chart here. Hold on, I'm going to exit full screen for a second. I'm going to present myself differently so that way we can see. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you see we have food cravings. So this is what I'm talking about when we're lacking the vitamins and minerals. So my people who are craving that chocolate, it could possibly be a magnesium deficiency, which is very common in U.S. diets. Magnesium is very, very important. If you're struggling with sleeping, magnesium. Struggling with heart issues, magnesium, because magnesium is like the calming. It's the calming effect, right? So again, magnesium. I'm not saying that. Check with your doctor, get your labs done, stuff like that. I'm not saying that to just go out and just buy a bunch of magnesium, but I'm saying it could potentially be that. So some sources with magnesium: nuts, seeds, veggies, and fruits. Okay. Sugary foods. So it's potential you could be lacking chromium, carbon, phosphorus, sulfur, and tryptophan. Okay. There's various sources in there. We're not going to go through them all. But if you look, there's a lot of them that have vegetables. And again, I just said most people do not eat vegetables, particularly green vegetables. So maybe you should start by, you're right, increasing your vegetables. Bread, pasta, and other carbs, you can potentially be lacking nitrogen. Okay, so you need more high protein foods, fatty fish, nuts, beans, chia seeds. Okay, oily foods could be calcium. Okay, so organic milk, cheese, green leafy vegetables. Again, almost every single one of these has vegetables in it. It may not specifically say green, but this one says green leafy. Tryptophan, spinach. Sulfur, cauliflower, and cabbage. Again, these are all cruciferous vegetables. Look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about. Salty foods could be chloride or silicone. So you need fatty fish or goat milk or cashews, nuts, seeds. Most of us don't eat nuts and seeds either. So it's been highly recommended in this list of what to eat too. So pause this video, look at those things. And again, maybe you want to start with just increasing your diet with leafy green vegetables. Simple as that. Best way to curb sugar cravings. So I found this diagram again. So get proper sleep. If you're a person who struggles with sleep, my best suggestion is start to focus on the quality first and then focus on the quantity. Okay, so most people try to stress about getting 8 hours. But listen, if you can just start to change up the quality, so meaning you're sleeping through the night as much as possible, you're not getting up as much, then we can start to adjust the quantity. Okay, quality over quantity. Opt for healthier carbs. So again, use this list. This is your complex carbs. If you don't know what that is, go back to video 1. Okay, find some support. So don't just hold everything in. Whatever is grown in the darkness will stay in the darkness, but whatever you bring out to the light, it has opportunity to be healed, right? So find some support. Like, hey, this is my struggles. Come to your spouse. This is my struggles. This is how it's affecting me, and I want to do better. And hopefully your spouse comes alongside you. Go back to my last videos and 3 things that are hindering you, that whole series, and hopefully they come alongside of you and not make the issue even worse, but help you to defeat this issue. Or hire a trainer or a coach. Like, hey, let's start to dwindle this down. Okay, so find some type of support, a community group, a coach, your spouse, family, friends, people that can hold you accountable. Most of us don't like letting people down, right? So if you're only keeping it to yourself, chances are you probably can care less about letting yourself down. But if you have an accountability partner, it might help you. Limit some sugary food. So one of my clients, shout out to my client Roy, his biggest thing was Coke. He loved Coke. He had about 44 ounces of Coke a day. And we just slowly but surely every single week progress. Like, all right, Roy, this is what you're going to do. You're going to start at 44. Let's go down by 8 ounces every single week. He went cold turkey and just cut it out completely. But some people aren't like that. So like we focus on, all right, we're going to limit 8 ounces every single week. So we didn't cut it out all at once, but we just started to shortly dwindle it down every single week. That was a challenge for him, right? Again, so the middle one, meet your vitamin and mineral and calorie requirements. Again, vitamin and minerals are very important. Sure, take a vitamin supplement if you want to. Some people argue that it's not beneficial. You just pee it all out. Listen, I'll leave that up to your own discretion. And then eat more fruit. It helps with the sugary craving, right? Throw in some, I don't know, a little bit of whipped cream. Make sure you measure that out. But I mean, those less calories in your fruit has the minerals, has some fiber, depending on what type of fruit. Mix it in with some yogurt. Freeze your yogurt for a little bit so it's kind of ice cream-ish. You know, there's different tricks of the trade that you can do to help fight your sugary cravings. It's just the mindset of it's not going to be the same, but the more that you feed the appetite of what's healthy, the less you're going to crave those other things, right? So it is going to take some time. I'm not just saying it's going to be cold turkey. I'm not saying that fruit's going to suffice for cakes if that's what you eat. But over time, you'll be like, okay, this is getting a little bit easier. All right. Verse 12, let's get into some meat now. So cravings, specifically times and habits. So we're just going to combine these because I feel like I couldn't just specifically talk about times without talking about habits because they're just intertwined with each other. Okay, so again, refresher times of the day. So this is where you need to identify. Are you having midday crashes? So like around 1, 2 o'clock, you just zoned out, clonked out, ready to go to sleep. You need more coffee, more caffeine, drink another energy drink. You drink about 3 a day, right? Are you bored? And then, of course, again, going back to the ladies, is it that time of the month? And then habits, again, refresher, stress eating, your lifestyle routine. So this can even play a part into how you was brought up. And then the environment that you put yourself in or surrounded by. Okay, so not all of my stuff fit onto this slide, unfortunately. But midday crash. So my first question for my midday crash people is what's your first meal of the day? So some people like to do intermittent fasting. Some people just are not breakfast people or they just don't have time for it, right? They don't have time for it. And that's not a shot at anybody. You have time for what you want to have time for. So they just don't eat. And they don't eat till 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock. So after they've already been at work for a few hours, or they just go straight to lunch. Cool. Hey, I'm all about consistency. If that's what works best for you and your schedule, I'm not going to knock you. Again, everybody's different. That's why to have one cookie cutter meal plan or a way of eating is not ideal because everybody's different. Schedules are different. But my question would be, what's your first meal? So the reason why I say that is because if your first meal is super high in carbohydrates, then no wonder why you're crashing. Because again, if we go back to the first video, I'm always referring back to the first video. So if you don't go and watch that by now or after this, then it's not going to make sense to you. Then your insulin is going to spike up super, super high depending on what you're eating and the quantity of what you're eating. So if you don't measure out your food, you just got a whole bunch of rice or whatever you got, and your insulin spikes up super high. Well, yeah, no wonder why, because your first meal of the day is super high in carbohydrates, probably super low in protein, unless you're really dedicated and know what you're doing. And you probably don't have any type of vegetables. You might have some fats because of the oil or whatever, but like carbohydrates is dominant in your first meal. And then guess what? You feel like trash. You're about to crash. You know, you feel good at first for like 20 minutes. Then after it starts to digest and go through the system, it doesn't It takes longer than that. But I'm just saying, like, after the insulin is reached peak and starting to come back down again, it's like now you're crashing. Okay, so what's your first meal? So that's why I have underneath there for my tip is the macro balance. So you want to make sure that you're getting equal amounts or your equal amounts of macros in each meal typically. So I don't know. So that means every single meal I'm going to get 30 grams of protein, 40 grams of carbs, and at least 10 to 15 grams of fat. So if you eat 3 times a day, there you go. Bam, bam, bam. Every meal has somewhere in there. It's not like 80 grams of carbs in here, 10 grams of protein, 5 grams of fat. Then my next meal is 50 grams of carbs, 20 grams of protein, 10 grams of fat. It's like you're all over the place. 80 grams of carbs and 50 grams of carbs, and then dinner's 80 grams of carbs because you decide you have a pasta, 20 grams of protein. So your protein is very, very low. There's no like balance. It's just kind of all over the place. So again, timing and planning comes into that. Properly time your carbs or reduce them. So if your first meal of the day is later on in the afternoon, like the lunchtime, maybe you want to keep your carbs at a minimum of like 20 to 30 grams. Match that with your protein. Protein's like 20 to 40, maybe even 50 grams. And your fats are 10 grams, 10 to 15 grams. So that way you do get the insulin spike. It's natural. It's going to happen. But it's like your 20 to 30 grams of carbs compared to the 80 is much different, and it should be more of a smooth flow and consistency versus just a whole bunch, if that makes sense to you guys. So again, it's just properly timing and knowing like, okay, this is my first meal. Maybe your second meal or your snack can be a little bit higher in the carbohydrates because you've already ate before. This isn't your first meal. Or if you want to have a whole bunch of carbohydrates, maybe have them at your last meal when you're about to go to bed, like 2 hours before bed, because you want to be tired at that point, right? So it may be beneficial. So timing and knowing what works best for you, or reducing, like I said. Maybe you're just having too much in that first meal, so when that midday comes, you just crash. So with carbs, it's best to just kind of like balance them. Like, so have your meal, have it balanced, maybe 20, 30 grams. Maybe you have a snack that has another 10 to 20 grams of carbs, so it's kind of balanced. It's not like super high amounts. And then, of course, have protein and fats in there too. Carbohydrates should always be complex, lower insulin spike. Again, if you don't know what it is, go to the first video. And maybe slowly increase midday. That's what I'm saying. So like maybe your snack is 10 to 20 grams of carbs throughout the day, just to kind of get you going, because carbs are king and your body's primary source of fuel. Again, all first video stuff. Okay, let's talk about boredom. So my best pro tip with boredom a couple of years ago. Oh my gosh, what was this lady's name? I was trying to really network and really get this podcast going. So I was networking with this dietitian in Wyandotte. I cannot think of her name for the life of me. I'm sorry. And this had to be like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, probably just before COVID. And one of her best pro tips that I've actually practiced was do something that distracts your mind for 10 minutes. So when you're bored, there's nothing to do. All you think about is food, and you just keep eating, keep eating, keep eating. But if you intentionally go find something to do for 10 minutes, you distract your mind. You learn that, hey, I'm not really hungry. I was just bored, right? So do something for 10 minutes. And that's why I have the second part. Be honest with yourself. Are you really hungry, or are you just bored? Because if you're just bored, go do something. Go be active. Stop sitting on the couch. Go for a walk. Okay, go do something active to distract yourself. But after that 10 minutes, if you really, really want it, go for it. Okay, you heard it from me. Am I saying that's the wisest advice? No, but you distracted yourself. You tried to do better. Again, we're practicing. Here comes the growth mindset. I'm practicing like, hey, I really distracted myself. Another side note that I want to put into there that I don't have on here is that I've been learning that watching TV or using your phone while you're eating is a very bad habit, because it actually distracts you. So you eat more than what you really need. So if you could eliminate as best as you can any type of television or your phone and really eat and think about, yeah, I'm full, you may just eat less. Okay, you might find that out to be true. Okay, so do something for 10 minutes, distract yourself, get your mind off of food, get your mind off of sweets, and go do something active. All right, so menstrual cycle. Most ladies don't even know about their own menstrual cycle. So again, back to the first video of nutrition, I told you guys I enrolled myself in a program called Women Are Not Small Men. So I learned all about women physiology, what happens in different phases, the luteal phase, and all that type of stuff. Okay, follicular phase. So in your guys' PMS phase, so usually about 14 to 10 days before you guys start your period, your body does not tap into its own glycogen storages. So what glycogen is it's the sugar stored inside of your guys' muscles. Because the primary focus during here is to support an embryo if there is one. Until your body knows that you are not pregnant, then it's going to pretend like it is, and it's going to protect your egg, right? So during that process, what happens is that your body doesn't tap into its own muscle glycogen. So like your functionings, why you feel so tired, your blood thickens, so that's why you feel so hot, you're so fatigued, right? So men, be patient with your women because it's really true. They're not as strong during this point either. Very lethargic, very hot. Okay, this is why physiologically. So what your body does is like, well, we need some outside sources to make up for what we're not doing, right? And what better source than food? So that's why you start to crave the super sugary foods, because guess what? Your body's natural sugar inside of its muscles is not going to tap into. So it needs you to give it what it needs, and that's typically through food, right? So my best suggestion here is, if you already know how many carbs you're eating, okay, which would be ideal, you want to increase your daily carb intake to about 10 to 15%. So if you're eating 150 grams of carbs, you're going to take 150 times that by 10 or 15%, and that's how many grams you're going to now eat until you're off of the PMS phase and you're back into starting your period, right? As soon as you start, that's the day your period starts. You can decrease it back down. Okay, but until that point, you want to increase your carbohydrates because that's what your body's lacking. Okay, increase your vitamins and minerals. So a lot of vitamin A, increase your omega-3s because again, your blood's super thick. So omega-3s actually makes your blood a little bit thinner. So it helps with your cramping. It helps with, just the thickness of your blood, especially if you bleed really, really heavy. So increase your vitamins and your minerals. Again, that's why it's good to eat your fruits and your vegetables very consistently, because it can help with these things. And then, of course, find alternative snacks that suffice. So go for some dark chocolate, 75% or better. Okay, so am I saying to eliminate the chocolate? Absolutely not. I don't know how it feels. I know cravings can be very, very real, but find some alternatives. Dark chocolate, 75% or better. Go on the internet, find some recipes for you to try. So when that time comes, you're like, okay, I got some recipes in hand. I really enjoy these things. That's what I'm going to have. Some recommendations that I have is Costco, I believe, sells like the Unreal, like peanut butter cups. I think Quest even has a version of the peanut butter cups. Costco has a lot of like healthier alternatives that we use personally. For like, they even have like a almond joy version of with dark chocolate, not so much sugar, better ingredients for you. So again, find some alternatives. They're out there. You just got to do your research, and it's just a matter of how much that you want it at that point, because we have a lot of new advancements now. So that'd be my best suggestion for the ladies. Again, that's why your body craves the carbohydrates, because it's not tapping into its own muscle glycogen to get the sugar. It's expecting you to do it. So that's why your body responds or craves those sugary foods. Okay, so let's talk about habits. So we kind of already talked about stress a little bit, but stress is probably very, very important, probably one of the most important things. So stress, my tips for that is to increase your daily carbs to, again, by that 10 to 15%, almost very similar to the menstrual cycle phase or the PMS phase for my ladies, almost the same exact thing. I almost copied and pasted identically. So increase your carbohydrates. So I want to shout out my client Inez. There's a point in time a couple months ago where she was feeling really, really burnt out, really, really fatigued. And now she knows, and she can even testify, that all we did was increase her carbohydrates a little bit. So she does best with carb cycling. That's just how her body adapts. That's how she does best. And we started to, instead of going so many days of very low carbs or no carbs, we shortened it and we increased her carbohydrates. And within a couple of weeks, she was feeling better. The work didn't dwindle. She still had the work stress. She still had that, but she was feeling better and was able to adapt to that, right? So that's what life is all about. It's life brings us stressors. We got to learn how to adapt, and sometimes that's taking a step back. We may not want to, we may not mentally think it's beneficial, but I promise you that sometimes you need to take a step back. And again, coming from this perspective, carbohydrates are king to recovery. So super high stress, that doesn't even have to just be stresses of life, but like if you're doing high intensity workouts, if you're doing, just crazy things that get your heart rate super high and it keeps you in that fight or flight and you never turn it off, carbohydrates are going to be your best friend. Sorry, keto people. Sorry, low carb people. That's just the physiology of our body. Okay, I'm not saying you can't do your diets. I'm just saying that you need to time it differently then. Okay. Another thing is increase your fiber, your vitamins and minerals. We haven't talked about fiber, but that is something that's super important. Is that fiber? Fiber is good for our gut health. Again, we'll talk more about gut health eventually, but it's really, really good for our gut health. It feeds the good bacteria in our body. And most of us, especially Americans, I shared a video with my clients that there's some people that eat between 100 and 150 grams of fiber every single day. If I even had that, I'd be sitting on the toilet all day. My stomach would be bloated. I'd be tearing it up, right? Not to be gross, but let's just be honest. And then the video says that most Americans get 15 grams. 100 to 150 to 15 grams. We're really doing ourselves a disservice. And it's not our fault, but it's just the manufacturing of our foods. They take away the fibers from our food. So like your enriched breads, anytime you see something that says enriched on it, your pasta, your breads that you find on the shelves, anything like that, that means that they stripped away all the fiber, they stripped away most of the good vitamins, they put some back in to make it seem better, right? You'll see like, oh, we put niacin in here, we put this vitamin in here, but in all reality, they took away the fiber, they took away the germ, they took away the things that really make it healthy to make it cheaper for us and worse for us overall. Okay, so increasing your fiber, increasing your vitamins, try to buy real foods as much as you can. Yes, I get it, it's expensive, but so is going to the doctor all the time because you're sick. So is paying for your prescriptions all the time because you're sick. So is having surgeries, God forbid, because you're sick. So what are you going to invest? You're going to invest now and take that sacrifice and buy foods that are real for you, or are you going to sacrifice later and have to pay a whole bunch of doctor bills? Okay, so another way to think about it. Stress. Another one is to recognize and be honest. I don't think we do a very good job of being honest with ourselves when it comes to feeling stressed or even recognizing that we're stressed. We just have again, Western mentality that just keep going, just keep pushing. You always got to be better than this person, or this person's doing this, so now you got to step your game up and you got to keep up with the Joneses, as they say, right? So it's always that there's never a time to just rest. And that's why I said that's how I am. I battle the same thing. So I'm not just preaching, I'm talking to myself too. That's why I was like, you know what? Who put the expectation on me that I had to shoot a video every single week? Nobody. It was myself, right? To be relevant in my mindset. I was like, but I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling bogged down. I was like, I'm just going to take this off. And did it kill me? Yeah, absolutely. Because again, I love consistency. I love teaching. I love to do this, but at the expense of my own energy, and it was affecting everything around me. So recognize and be honest with yourself. Like, hey, yeah, you're stressed. Maybe you should dial it back. Dial back your workouts a little bit. Instead of going 4 days, maybe go 3, or maybe go 2, or do a third of your original reps. Sounds like you're not doing anything, but hey, you're recovering to make yourself better. Sometimes a step backwards is a step forward, right? And then of course, last one is find positive outlets that does not involve food. Okay, so Again, some people stress eat. That is their outlet. We need to find something to replace that. Go do something different, whether it's an activity, whether it's journaling, or whether it's reaching out to your accountability partner, going for a walk. Like, hey, I'm really craving this, but I'm choosing to step away. I'm going to go for a walk for 10 minutes to distract my mind. So that way, I don't succumb to that temptation. So stress is very, very much a factor in our cravings and how to fight them. Okay, so next one is lifestyle and routine. So all these things require identify, but this one I'm specifying to identify your eating patterns. Like, when do you eat? What times do you eat? Like, okay, I eat at 9 o'clock. I have a snack at 11:30. I have lunch at 2. I have another snack at 4, and then I have dinner at like 6:30. Like, what is your eating patterns? Identify that first. Okay, and then we're going to substitute with healthier choices or activity. So again, this doesn't just boil down to like what you're doing now, but this also boils down to like how you were raised. So for me, we always had snack time just before bed. That's how I was raised. I'm not much of a really big before bed snacker. I think I was only like that until I was like a teenager. Okay, so thank God that never really stuck with me. But for like my wife on the flip side, she's always grown up having dessert after dinner. Like, no matter how full she is, she's always ready for dessert. And that's how she grew up, and she still has the same patterns to this day. So for her to not have something sweet after dinner is something that she grew up in and something that she has to battle, or she finds her substitutes. Again, like I said, the Unreal products, using Bear Bell protein bars, using fruit, and it's a conscious choice. Does it always suffice? Is it always what the craving is? No. But it's, again, just taking that step to just be better, even if it doesn't seem significant. Small things add up to big change, right? So just recognizing that, okay, what time do I eat, and what are my eating patterns, right? And then, of course, last one is the environment. So again, identify triggers. And this point, this could be television. So your body, your custom, your routine is every time you come home from work, you make dinner or you go out to get takeout, whatever the case may be, and sit down and watch TV, and you just mindlessly just eat whatever's there. You're not even hungry anymore. You don't even know if you're hungry anymore because you're distracted by the TV or your phone, and you just constantly eat. You go and grab a snack, and you're just eating more. Even though your body says it's full, you don't know that because your mind's not there, right? Or maybe it is just watching TV and you see something on TV like, man, that really looks good. I need to have that. Or you're scrolling through social media and you see an advertisement because the guy, what's his name, Jordan, is showing you this recipe on how to make this, right? So now again, it's influence at that point. People that you're around, So again, for me, I've been really, really blessed to have good discipline, just practicing good discipline over my life. So like, I don't always have to have something sweet after dinner, as opposed to my wife. She's like, always guaranteed. I say 95% of the time, I want something sweet after dinner. Me, it's like I don't have to succumb to that. Like, I'm not really hungry. I'm okay, right? And that's not to say I'm a better person. That's just not my vice, right? So it's your environment. Like, maybe your husband or maybe your wife's that way. Like, hey, I'm gonna go get me some ice cream, or hey, they're bringing in cookies, and it's like you're helping me to fall back into that, not to get away from that. So it's the people that you're around. Some people just have that specific influence because with this person you always go out for drinks. So like when you're around that person, your mind thinks, hey, we're going to drink today, or we're going to go out for lunch today, or so it's just people and just personal associations. So again, like I said, going back to my wife, after dinner, her personal association is, okay, it's time for dessert. It's time for something sweet. So like, what personal associations or things of habit do you have? Like, okay, and at 9 o'clock at night, I know it's time for ice cream as I lay in bed and watch TV. It's personal associations, things of habit. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute those with healthier choices or activity. So again, finding better choices. You can make your favorite foods better. Pizza is not bad. Pizza is actually a really good food. It's really healthy. It just depends on how it was made. right? You can make pizza healthier. You can make tacos healthier. You can make your desserts healthier. You just got to find the options. And trust me, they're out there. Social media has a ton of recipes, right? So just find healthier versions or increase your activity. So, I'm a stress eater. I'm going to choose to go out and walk for 10 minutes. Or I'm going to substitute, instead of doing this, I'm going to associate now with doing some type of activity. So for the month of March, by the way, I challenge everybody to do something new. So try something new. For me, I just started to learn Krav Maga. So it's a fighting style, Israeli fighting style. So I started learning that. Something new, getting out of my shell, right? Keep trigger foods out of your house or out of sight. So seeing specific foods may be a trigger point for you. Best to keep it away or out of sight. Again, back to the first video, put things in places that you may forget or hard to reach. So like if you have to have these sweets in your house for whatever reason, or these foods that you desire in your house for whatever reason, put it in the basement. So hey, if you want it, instead of 9 o'clock, now I go all the way downstairs to the basement, go grab it, come all the way back up, and then enjoy it, I guess, if you will. But it's like out of sight, out of mind, right? Like back to the mentality thing. If you don't see it, you forget about it. And then, of course, have an accountability partner. We already talked about that a little bit earlier. So don't let that fester in the darkness. Bring it to the light. Let people come alongside of you to help you. That's why we have each other, right? Get yourself in the community. Get yourself a coach, whatever the case may be, or talk to your spouse and just be transparent. Okay, so I hope those things helped. Okay, so some overall tips for fighting cravings, if I could kind of sum up a little bit, is number one is protein consumption. So consume a sufficient amount of protein in each meal, because protein helps with satiation and muscle growth or repair. So again, if you don't know how much protein, go back to video number 1 where we talk about the fundamentals or the basics of nutrition, and get that protein in, because chances are you're not going to overeat if you're really full. And if we can get more protein in, protein's a natural fat burner, so it's going to help us to burn some extra calories. It's going to help build up some muscle. It's going to give us less cravings, because you usually crave because you're hungry or you're lacking, whatever the case may be. So prioritize getting enough protein in each meal. Again, back to earlier's discussion, don't have times where it's like, all right, 20 grams of protein here, 10 grams of protein here, 5 grams of protein here. You want to try to keep it as consistent as possible. Don't get stressed out about it. If your one meal has 50 and your next meal has 35, at least it's somewhere in the ballpark. But I'm talking like very drastic, measures. But, try to be consistent with that and figure out, again, your eating patterns and what works best for you. But prioritize protein. Secondly, carbs. So focus on high quality carbs. So your complex carbs, stuff that doesn't increase your insulin so fast. And of course, increase your fiber. I challenge you guys this week to try to get between 20 and 30 grams of fiber. Okay, I told you earlier, the statistic is most Americans only get 15 grams per day. So I'm challenging you to get 20 to 30. Increase your water a little bit, and let me know how that goes. Vitamins and minerals. Chances are sometimes you have craving, your body is lacking something. So again, go back to that slide that shows you, like, hey, if you're lacking magnesium, these are some substitutes. If you're lacking nitrogen, these are some substitutes. So identify those cravings, why they're there, and then go back to that chart in the previous slides and throw in some foods, specifically leafy green vegetables. Best choice right there. You can never go wrong with leafy greens. And then lastly, very important as well, is identify and plan. I think that is probably the most important thing. And I know that takes work, and I know sometimes it can be very discouraging because, like, man, I'm already crunched for time. But again, as I always say, build momentum, find one thing and just stick with it and continue to keep practicing. So identify your eating patterns and your stress triggers, finding out, like, okay, this is when I eat. I'm more of a snacker versus a meal person, so I'll eat more snacks than I do meals. Adjust your meal plan accordingly. So I'm even teaching you how to make your own meal plan. Adjust your meal plan accordingly. Like, all right, these are my snacks that I'm going to have. I'm only going to have like 1, maybe 2 big meals. The rest is going to be kind of snacking. Again, you don't have to have 3 meals a day, right? You're going to adjust according to your lifestyle. Then figure out what triggers your stress, because again, stress can lead to stress eating, leads to higher cortisol. So now your body has different demands. It leads to comfort foods, right? So finding out what those stress triggers are and how to combat them differently using activity or using different food substitutes, right? Or making your favorite foods healthier. Again, there's tons of recipes out there. Next one is keep your macros consistent in each meal or snack. I already touched on that a little bit just now. So again, try to focus on having consistency with your numbers, with the proteins, with the fats, with the carbohydrates throughout the day. So you don't want one just drastically higher than the other at one point, unless you're doing that intentionally. But usually, ideally, it's best to have very similar numbers throughout the whole day. Know your physiology. So this is more for my ladies. Like, hey, if you most ladies keep track of their period, I hope, and like, hey, this is when I'm anticipated to start. So I know 2 weeks before, say, I need to have my snacks prepared. I need to find some better recipes. I need to have these things here. I need to increase my carbs by 10 to 15% because my body's not tapping into muscle glycogen. So now it's demanding that I get outside sources. Okay, so again, know your physiology, know what's going on, and then find recipes and substitutes. I've been stressing that a lot. But seriously, that's my best suggestion is find some recipes to make your favorite foods healthier. Go on social media, go on YouTube, just type it in, learn how to substitute out different oils. So smoking point, if you're using something that needs a high smoking point, you're going to use avocado oil. If you need something that's low smoking point, extra virgin olive oil. Coconut oil, I'm not sure, maybe like somewhere in the middle there. Okay, finding sugar substitutes. So we personally use Truvia brown sugar. So some requires brown sugar. We use Truvia zero sugar brown sugar. I'm not saying it's the most healthiest, but again, it has no calories in it, right? It still makes things sweet. And for our regular sugar, so like when we put in our tea, we use monk fruit. So I don't use stevia because most stevia is maltodextrin than stevia leaf extract. We use monk fruit. Okay, I learned that that is a little bit healthier for you, a little bit more real than stevia and maltodextrin. So there you go, monk fruit and Truvia brown sugar, and then your oils to substitute. Other than that, usually everything else is fine. If you're making from scratch, use the organic all-purpose flour, right? So don't be using cheap flour. Use the organic all-purpose flour that still has the micronutrients in it. All right. So overall, guys, I hope that this was very, very helpful for you. I hope this taught you something on how to fight your cravings and your sweet tooth. Again, usually my salty people, we didn't really talk a lot about salty people, but usually, again, that's just for the texture. You want the crunch or you're possibly dehydrated. Okay, I feel like salty you can easily cure by just adding some salt to your food. But again, it's just all about your appetite. What are you constantly feeding that you have that craving? So I think salty is probably the easiest one out of those two, between sweet and salty. That'd be my best pro tip for you guys. I know we didn't talk much about that, but I definitely hope that helps. So Phil and I here, you can find more information or visit us on our website at positivegainstore.com. And again, today's topic was food cravings and tips to combat. This is Tomas Ramirez from Positive Gains Training, and you guys were just watching Impact Beyond the Weights. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and thank you again. God bless.